Good evening, everyone. Welcome to First Church of Religious Science. Welcome to our Thursday evening self-healing class. This is our Louise Hay class, so we call it different names. Whether you're joining us here on Zoom, as many of you are, or watching later today, tomorrow, on YouTube, Facebook, or any of the social media channels, something inside of you said yes to bring you here today or this evening. And I don't believe that's an accident. We're always in the perfect place at the perfect time. So today or this evening, I want to share something that could change the way you think about healing and maybe even the way you live your life. Here it is. You don't have to struggle or fight to find your way into healing. Healing is already here. We'll tell you in many ways from week to week. It's here now. So it's here, it's now, it's right where you are, and it begins the moment you're willing to let it in, to allow it. Louise Hay, who, as you know, was a practitioner and a minister here at First Church, and whose work we celebrate every single Thursday night, said it so clearly when she said, deep at the center of your being, you have all the answers. You are connected to an infinite wisdom that knows exactly what to do. You're definitely the whole bit, as Barker said, though sometimes we don't always remember it or realize that we are the whole bit. Our real work is to stop working against ourselves. Our real work is to stop fighting ourselves and begin trusting life, to start trusting that deeper aspect of ourselves, that deeper current of intelligence that's already so much a part of you and moving within you. There's a line from Emerson that always gets me when I hear it, and I run into it a few times a year, because it lands with such a thud, such a truth. He said, get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. And that's, get your bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. Now that's a dramatic way to put it, but you get the point. When we release our fears, our need to control, our overthinking and our second-guessing everything, ourselves and everyone else, when we do that, then the divine can actually move through us. So what are we talking about? Releasing all that stuff. The need to control, the need to worry, the need to overthink and second-guess. We want to let all that go so it gets in the way of the divine circuits, right? So that the divine can actually move through us. Spirit already knows how to heal. It's not waiting for you to be perfect. It's simply waiting for you to stop working against yourself. So to stop tying yourself up in knots. So let's let that particular part of ourselves that's tied up in knots unwind. Let that thread unwind. I remember a number of years ago, two ministerial friends of mine that I was learning a lot from them. They're a married couple, and they were having a conversation about one of the practitioners who was really quite amazing and talented, but these two ministers were saying, as I remember it, that this individual was tripping themselves up in consciousness. And that phrase caught my attention at the time because I hadn't heard it before. And I was a little bit intrigued, and so I asked them about it. And again, they said she was gifted and really brilliant, but there was an area of her life, I can't remember what it was, it doesn't matter, where she kept derailing her own progress. So this person that they were talking about, we all thought was amazing, right? But again, she would get tangled up, something related to a relationship or something, as I recall. But again, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing with us. We have these areas that we keep getting tied up or tied down. So sometimes when we get to a point where we really think we've had a breakthrough, then we find ourselves taking a step back. And that definitely can happen to any of us. I think most of us can relate to it, relate to the idea of how we trip ourselves up in consciousness. And speaking of getting tangled up within, which is the theme that we're talking about tonight, and getting untangled, have you ever tried to untangle a ball of yarn? I remember when I was younger, somehow I was doing that. And at first glance, it looks impossible, because if you pull at it, it gets worse. You tug and it'll get tighter. But if you pause for a moment and you loosen it up a little bit, If you breathe, if you relax your grip on it, just take a pause and let yourself breathe, you're going to find that it's going to loosen up. There'll be one small place where it'll give, and that's where the whole thing starts to loosen. So healing works in a similar way. Works just like that, actually. So what does that mean? It means the truth of who you are, the life in you, the spirit in you is unbreakable. The thing that gets threatened is the fear. The thing that gets threatened when you're connected is the stories. The thing that gets all shaken up and threatened is the mistaken beliefs that you have been carrying. When you begin to let go of these things, the real you begins to come forward. It starts to shine through. And with that comes a sense of peace and confidence, because the truth within you has always been safe. You can't hurt it. You can just get the stuff out of the way of the divine circuits and let it shine through. It's only our fear. It's only our fear that ever made it seem otherwise. Ernest Holmes said it like this: "There is power for good in the universe greater than you, of which you are a part, and you can use it." A lot of times they don't say it the full way, but he said it just like that. There's power for good in the universe greater than you, of which you are a part, and you can use it. That power is not somewhere out there. It's already alive in you. It's the quiet, quiet river running underneath all the noise in your busy life. You don't have to invent it. You don't have to fight for it. You only have to create a space within yourself to experience it, for it to move within you. And that's what this evening is about. The question for today, this evening, is how to stop yanking at the knots in your life or making them worse, and how to start letting that thread or those knots unwind. How to move from fear to trust, from force to flow, from criticism, self-criticism, criticism. How to move from that to compassion, compassion for self, and then ultimately for others. Because when you do, healing happens naturally, beautifully. You don't have to chase it. You don't demand it. You simply receive it as you clear that other stuff out of the way of these divine circuits that Emerson was talking about. Just like loosening a tight knot, the more you pull it or fight it, the tighter it gets. But the moment you soften, the moment you stop pulling, it begins to relax and it begins to release. And the same is true inside of us. When we resist, we block our own healing. Not because healing isn't available, as I said, it's here now, it's in you, operating through you, but because we're always seem to be standing in our own way. And we could be tripping ourselves up in consciousness, as I said earlier. So this is the thing. When we relax and we let it in, this is where the willingness comes in. Healing, self-healing doesn't require for us to be perfect in any way. It only requires, and we don't have to have it all figured out either. It only requires that we become willing. I remember from a 12-step program many years ago, it was Bill Wilson who wrote this line, I believe. Willingness is the key. So it is the key that opens the door. It's the willingness to take that pause many times during the day that we talk about week after week. Take that pause and have the willingness to breathe. The willingness to stop pulling at yourself so hard or criticizing yourself. Louise put it beautifully this way when she said, "I don't fix problems, I fix my thinking. Then the problems fix themselves." Again, I don't fix problems, I fix my thinking. Then the problems fix themselves. That's really what religious science is all about. That's what pausing is really about. Because when you pause, you can breathe in, you can connect with Source. You can mentally invite it into your awareness. It won't be the uninvited guest, as my dad used to say to me when I was a kid. So we pause and we invite this connection in. We fix our thinking. Then the problems, the so-called problems, will fix themselves. So that's the argument for pausing. Pausing and connecting, inviting it in, letting the divine pattern that's already alive in you have some room to move. Sometimes the most healing thing any of us can do when we're feeling stuck or overwhelmed is to ask, am I pushing or pulling too hard right now? Am I trying too hard? Because here's the thing. We want to have a shift. The moment you pause and reflect, the moment you soften, even just a little, you begin to let this thread unwind. And as you do, when you do, you allow spirit, you allow source to move. You open the door for healing to enter. And no, that doesn't mean ignoring the challenges of life, just the opposite. It means, though you do have the presence of mind to stop reacting, stop attacking from fear, stop attacking people, just stop. As I say in different classes, stop in the name of love. Just simply stop. Stop so you can stop believing the old story that you're alone or that you're powerless. Let yourself remember, as Holmes reminded us, that there is a power for good greater than anything that you're facing, and it's in you right now. You're part of it, and you can use it. So you don't have to fix anything, force anything. In fact, most instances, it would be much better if you just let certain things alone. You don't have to control the outcome. You only have to open the door within and go to that place deep at the center of your being that Louise spoke of. And that door is always opened simply by having the willingness to go there, connect with it, and invite it in. Even the smallest breath of willingness is enough to shift everything. A simple pause, a gentle "I'm willing." That's all it takes to begin again. Because when we stop getting all constricted, tightening ourselves up, then we create that space, we can allow it to come in. And when we do, we come back to the flow of our true self. Not the fearful version, not the broken version, but the real you, the shining you, the whole you. So again, you don't have to force it. In fact, please don't try to force it. You don't have to will it. You don't have to wrestle with it or to try to wrestle your life into shape. I'm never going to tell you from this center what to do, because that's not what we do. But I'll always give suggestions to everyone. And this is one I'll give it, to create a space within yourself. Take that pause so healing can happen. And that's what we're going to practice today. Because once we pause, once we get in the habit of pausing and stop working against ourselves, then we have to create a place where we can slow down. So then we can take a look at what we might be carrying around with us. Every week I ask you, what's that internal dialogue like? I ask that because I want people to start to, after they take pause, I want them to reflect on their own thought processes to see what they're still carrying with them. I know we have the power to change our lives. So the next thing we do after we take that pause again is just pay attention to that dialogue and what we're still carrying. Some of you know what you're carrying, what thoughts you're carrying, what memories, what old beliefs that are still tying you up inside. It's important to take a look. Even with all the work that we've done on ourselves, there's still some things that seem to crop up from time to time for all of us. Sometimes it might sound like, oh gosh, I'm still doing this, or I'm really disappointed in myself, or I'm dumb, or I'm not good enough. Why do I keep doing this? Or maybe it's a trust issue. I can't trust people. I can't trust this. Or people will let me down. I mean, these are some of the stories that people keep. It could be about money or finances and not doing well, and you could tell yourself various things about that. You might be thinking, I don't have enough, or there's not enough, or everything's becoming too difficult. You could be telling yourself that you don't have enough strength. So it could be physical strength, emotional strength. Same thing. You could be talking about some part of your body, your shoulder, your foot, your arm. And the way you're talking to yourself or about yourself oftentimes is from a complaint. So we want to pay attention to that dialogue. Could be about our emotions. Might be if I let my guard down, I'll be hurt again. So closing yourself off. Now, we don't oftentimes say all these things aloud that I just listed. And You don't say them in the same way I just explained necessarily. But these kind of ideas live in the background for many of us. Some of them, a few of them. And they show up in the way we speak to ourselves. They echo in our decisions, our day-to-day decisions. They somewhat shape or color how we respond to life itself, to love, and to change. So these are the stories that run in us in the backdrop. We started picking them up as children, and we definitely added to them along the way. Sometimes we inherited these ideas from our families. We're trying their best, but they didn't know how powerful we really were. They didn't know we were spiritual beings and we were growing and expanding. Sometimes these ideas came from our culture, from our religions, from the media, from the trauma of being just different. They're not just thoughts, though. You might think of them as grooves in your consciousness. So we've got these like grooves on a record. They're grooves in our consciousness. And they can run deep. Even when we've stopped pulling from the outside, we've done work on ourselves spiritually, there's still maybe some of this stuff running inside. So there's these inner ideas, beliefs and things. And maybe we've handled most of the stuff. We've done the work on ourselves, but these things are still, these grooves are still playing within us. And I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're trying to prove something or trying to fix something. Maybe we're trying to protect ourselves. Maybe we're trying to protect ourselves from something we haven't looked at in many years. Louise taught us that every challenge we're having, whether physical, emotional, relational, always traces back to some old pattern of thinking. And she said it traces us back to something that needs to be healed. Not because we're bad, not because we failed, but because somewhere along the line, we accepted an idea, we accepted something that was never true about ourselves. So, again, we are spiritual beings, so you're whole, you're complete, you are one with the one. And we have, a mistaken belief, something we've accepted, something that we've bought into that was never true about us, according to Louise. And part of the art of healing is letting that thread that I'm talking about this evening, whatever that's got us all tied up, letting it unwind. And part of this process is becoming willing to loosen the old stories one by one, not fight with them, not hate them, not fight with them. You don't have to fully understand what happened either, because you can't entirely. You can simply say, maybe I don't need to keep carrying this anymore. When you notice yourself talking about other people, or maybe it's a gossip or it's a negative commentary, or you just know when it doesn't feel right. And maybe you can say to yourself, maybe I don't need to do that anymore. Maybe I don't need to carry it anymore. Maybe I can let this whole thing soften. Maybe I can let it go. Maybe there's a better story. Maybe there's a better story waiting to be told through me. That's a very powerful line. Because you're a creator, you are the creator with your thoughts and your stories. So a great affirmation is, maybe there's a better story waiting to be told through me. Because as you heal your life, you're going to change your conversation around. You're going to actively start to pay attention to the way you speak and think. So maybe there's a better story waiting to be told through me. Sometimes that one moment that we have, when we see it that way, that one moment of willingness is all it takes to begin a great shift. You might realize you don't need to keep saying that I always struggle. You might find you don't need to say half the things you're saying. Now, pause here, get real. This doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes that voice is quiet at first, and we're pretty actively not wanting to listen to it, but it's always there. It takes a little bit of time. Spirit is wooing you, I was always told when I was younger. I think I got that from Emerson. And the thing is that you learn to take a pause, you will get information. Sometimes the voice is quiet at first, especially when you've been listening to all the old voices for a long time, but it's still there within you. It's always there, attempting to get your attention. And the more you pause, the more you meditate, or whatever you do your affirmations, the more you do that, the more you listen to it, and the more willing you are, the louder it becomes within you. Louise used to invite people to say, I'm willing to release the need for this. It could be any unpleasant circumstance. She would say, I'm willing. She would have them say, I'm willing to release the need for this. It could be rejection. It could be poverty. It could be negative thinking. She never said, I must do this or must do that. She never said, I have to fix it today. And she definitely didn't have people say, I should do this or I should do that. She simply said, and she suggested you say, I am willing. Because that phrase, as gentle as it is incredibly powerful. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's an energetic decision to interrupt an old story and open the door for something new. It's not retreating. It's aligning yourself. And once you align yourself with life, the power within you begins to stir again. It gets active. It begins to organize. It begins to heal. It begins to guide you. And you're not alone in doing that, because then you're inviting spirit in. And here's the fact. You never have been alone. You are in partnership with the intelligence of the universe. When you say the following things, such as, I'm willing to live in peace. I'm willing to be loved. I'm willing to trust again. You're not just saying nice words. You're moving spiritual energy when you say those things. And you're choosing to create from clarity rather than fear. You're participating in your healing, not by force, but by direction. And that's what we teach her every single week. You're never stuck. You're never abandoned. You're never, ever without power, because the same power that creates galaxies lives within you, and you can use it. So what happens when we start letting go of all these old threads, these old knots? What happens when we stop? When we stop the pushing and the pulling, and we begin to breathe and allow the Spirit to move within us and clear the way of the divine circuits? What happens when we start allowing all of that? Well, I'm going to answer. Something beautiful happens. Grace enters. Life opens. Healing begins. It's not always with fireworks, not always in dramatic, earth-shaking ways. Often you'll notice it in small ways, beautiful shifts in consciousness, subtle movements of peace, serendipitous moments. All of these things start to ripple through our daily lives. And you might find yourself breathing a little bit deeper, being a little kinder to yourself than you're used to. You might respond with more patience in a moment that once upon a time would have triggered you. You might find yourself standing a little taller with a little more confidence without even realizing why. And one day you wake up and you think, I'm not carrying the same weight around me. God, my attitude, my outlook is brighter. I'm not carrying the weight I used to. Something has shifted, something real, and it's healing. Healing doesn't scream. It certainly doesn't push. It arrives quietly, like a flower blooming, not because it was forced again, but because all the conditions were finally right. Because you paused, because you softened within yourself to create an opening or a space, because you became willing. You stopped feeding that old story and you started allowing a new one to arise, a new story and a better story, where you are not the problem, you are the solution. A new story where you're not behind. It's a story where you are right on time. It's a story where life is not working against you. Rather, it is unfolding through you. That's what it means to let the thread unwind, and you let the divine in you help you shape something more beautiful than you had ever imagined. And here's something I want you to really take in deeply as you can. I've said it twice. I'll say it a third time. You don't have to be perfect at this. Just keep showing up, stay in the course. You don't have to do it all right. Just have the willingness to show up for yourself. Show up here, because we're here to remind you. And have the willingness to pause, the willingness to connect, to breathe, the willingness to choose differently and to choose again, especially when the old patterns try to pull you back. From my friend Joyce, the British lady I speak of often, willingness to stay the course. Louise Hay reminded us again and again, progress, not perfection. And that's all Spirit really ever asks, because the whole universe is about expansion, evolution, and to be open to the next gentle step, to trust that even the smallest opening is enough to let the light in. Sometimes we forget that we have a choice, but we always do. We think we're locked in. We think this is it. We think there's no other way. There's no escape. Nothing can be done. We might conclude this is how it is. But the fact is, in every moment, every single moment, you have the ability to be in a new moment. You have a doorway that's available to you. And the key is always the same. Ask yourself, is there something more self-loving? Is there a more self-loving way I could respond right now? Is there a kinder thought that I could choose in this moment? Not because you have to, but because you can. You're not trapped. You're not powerless. You're never locked into an old pattern unless you choose to be. And when you begin to live from connection, from that awareness that you're connected to Source, even just a little bit, life meets you in a new way. And again, the world expands, it softens around you because something inside you has changed, has softened, and you've created the opening. Opportunities will begin to appear because you're no longer closed off from them. The peace within you expands because you've made room for it to expand. This doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means you no longer make your peace dependent upon perfection or make your peace dependent upon people or things going a certain way. You begin to trust the process of life, and you trust that same power beating in your heart, breathing in your lungs, same power that moves the tides and the stars. You understand it's moving in you also. Spinning the planets, lifting the tide, that same power is in you. And when you trust it, when you live from this belief and this connection, you begin to experience what Louise said, the miracle of ordinary, I would call them extraordinary days, but she called them ordinary days, where there is no drama, no panic, just strength and confidence that says, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm guided, I'm supported. That's when life really begins to heal you, because not because you pushed harder, not because you got everything right, but because you were finally willing to let it happen. And the miracle is the life you've been waiting for has been waiting for you all along. So let's anchor all this in for today, for this evening, with a few affirmations that you can say and speak from the heart. You can repeat them after me if you like, or simply let the words wash over you. The first is, I'm willing to be open to the good that's already here. Next, I'm willing to trust the flow of healing within me. I'm willing to trust the flow of healing within me. I'm willing to be loved, supported, and guided. Again, I'm willing to be loved, supported, and guided. I'm willing to live in peace. Yes, I'm willing to live in peace. I'm willing to let the thread unwind. I'm willing to let go. So let's take a breath. Let's seal all of this now in an affirmative prayer, not just to affirm what we've heard, but to activate what we have claimed. Here it is. There is one life, one intelligence, one love, one power for good. That life is my life right now. I'm one with this presence, this power, this spirit, this source, the flow of creation, the heart of it all. Right where I am, the fullness of life is present. Right where I am, love is alive and well. Right where I am, the path is clear. Even if I don't see the whole thing, the whole road, today I release the old story. I lay down pressure, fear, force, and I align with peace. I align with power. I align with the truth that I'm already enough, already supported. I don't need to pull or push. I don't need to force anything. I simply create a space, create the space within, and trust in everything that's unfolding. I give thanks that the law responds. I give thanks that life is already moving in divine order on my behalf. I rest knowing that something beautiful is definitely on its way, and so it is. So let's collectively all take one more breath, letting that affirmative prayer settle into our bodies. Let the words settle into our hearts. We don't have to do it all once. We just need to stay willing, to stay open, and keep remembering who you are. And now, as always, we're opening the Zoom room, the floor up for you. If anybody is new, please say hello, where you're from. And for everyone else who come and share so beautifully, share whatever has come up for you today. We'd love to hear what's moving in you and through you this evening, what you're releasing, what you're claiming, or maybe simply how that thread is beginning to unwind. So welcome here, welcome to First Church. And so it is again.